Well, we were just last with you guys with the breakdown of the first round of the NFL draft. And now we want to come back with the complete draft, our winners today that we want to talk about. Who did we really think overall moved their team forward in the best position moving into this next season and beyond? It was almost hard to pick on the winner side because I think a lot of teams really stayed on brand this year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before that we got on air. A lot of B plus, B level drafts where they got a lot of really good value at certain positions where they were at the draft, and so we definitely not a ton of reaches that I didn't dislike, and so there was a lot of winners. But let's talk about those teams that were excellent in the draft, and we'll start off with the Rams, which I think they did a very, very good job of trying to get some guys that can get after the quarterback after losing Aaron Donald. With those first two picks, getting Jared Verse, edge rusher out of Florida State, and then staying with Florida State, they got Brandon Fisk, the D tackle. Definitely some good pickups. Brandon Fisk, he ended up doing really, really well in the Senior Bowl as well as the Combine, raised up his draft a bunch, and now Jared Verse got a great reaction as he was super happy that he got to play alongside his old Florida State teammate.
Yeah, I think this is a great way to do some things. You know, you had to get a retooling with Aaron Donald's retirement. You needed a retooling there at the defensive line. Take two teammates that had a fantastic season. Both of them came from smaller programs into Florida State, had great years. Like you said, Fisk had a great offseason, just getting after it. I know we have a connection with that, with your sister, my daughter, working with him in the offseason, getting him ready for the Combine and being able to see that progression. And so really cool stuff. And I love what the Rams did here with those first two rounds and getting some really excellent players in a place of need, but also getting teammates so they already know how to work with one another.
Oh, yeah. Then you got Blake Corum in the third round, along with the safety out of Miami. They even picked up they then didn't have a fourth round pick, but I really like their two third round picks. I think Blake Corum fits into that Sean McVay system fantastically. Karam Kitchens is a really nice safety out of Miami that I think could get an opportunity to start for that Rams team if he ends up developing. And then they got some nice upside pickups down there as well. I did like the even later round, 6th round pickup of the wide receiver, Jordan Whittington. I thought that was a nice pickup in the wide receiver room to add to an already pretty stacked receiving room with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, no, they've got some really good upside guys here later in the draft. Love what they did. And, Rams have done some nice things in the draft. They haven't really had a lot of top-end draft picks even available to them. I don't know when the last time they drafted in the first round was. It's quite a while ago, though. It was, before the invention of the wheel, I believe. But, they finally had a first-round draft pick. They did a nice job getting Verse. And, I think later they got some guys with huge upsides that I think is going to pay off for them. Coming into a good system, that's a great place for those players to land and then be able to learn and thrive.
Oh, absolutely. Rams always kill it in the draft, even if they don't have a first round pick. And to give you an answer, their last first round pick was Jared Goff. So,
Nice.
it's been a
Yeah.
while since
Yeah, it
they
was
had
right
that
before
first round.
fire was invented. Yeah, it was.
Well, let's move on to another great draft team, as I really enjoyed this team's draft, and I really didn't know how they were going to go with how they ended up drafting. I couldn't have predicted how it ended up going down, but it felt very on brand for them, and that was the Los Angeles Chargers as John Harbaugh takes over to be able to be that leader and he definitely led the draft, and as you could see with the way they picked.
A lot of to be excited about in SoCal, right? We go to Rams and then we go right to the Chargers. Don't even have to leave the city. Another good draft. Jim Harbaugh and that staff staying on brand with Jim Harbaugh. I think getting a lot of good opportunities to make some good impact in that team. There's already some talent in the room. They did trade away a little bit of it, trying to retool and get into the groove with where Harbaugh's at and what he likes to do. And yeah, I love the Joe Alt pick in the first round. And then get him a nice wide receiver with McConkey out of Georgia that can, be a good shore-handed guy that can take some pressure off Herbert as he's learning this new system, and works really well with what Jim Harbaugh likes to do.
Oh, absolutely. And then, Harbaugh knows this player better than any of the scouts do, and that's Junior Colson, the linebacker out of Michigan that they ended up selecting in the third round and number 69. I mean, there's a reason he drafted him. We see a lot of times college coaches take over and they don't draft their guy out of the college game, and he was like, no, this guy's good enough. I need him on this defensive roster. And so I know that's going to be a good ad, just going from Jim Harbaugh's Michigan team to Jim Harbaugh's now Chargers team. I did like also the D tackle that they selected out of Alabama at the 105 pick. I mean, it's never wrong to go for an Alabama defensive tackle.
Right.
They go up against the best offensive lines. They have some of the best teammates that they learn from over in Alabama, and so very impressive stuff. But then I would like to talk about their steals at the last bit of the draft, the round 7, as I liked both the wide receivers they picked up. Brendan Rice, wide receiver out of USC, obviously, the Rice family, the elite
Legacy,
wide
man.
receiver. And so, Jerry Rice already great. And he actually fell, even though he's Jerry Rice's son, and you usually see, the lineage picks get picked up earlier than what they should have. He falls all the way to number 7, which really surprised me, but he's a big body wide receiver that's great at contested catches. And then you also talk about another big-bodied wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson, the wide receiver out of Michigan. They definitely overhauled that wide receiver room after losing a few wide receivers in free agency this last year. And so getting Ladd McConkey, Brendan Rice, and Cornelius Johnson, I think all wins that could all see playing time this upcoming year.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I think really nice work in the draft. And here's the thing, like we saw this with Pete Carroll, right? When he first, left USC and came to Seattle, he was really knowledgeable about those college players, right? Because he'd recruited them, right? Even if they didn't go to USC, he knew who they were. He knew why he either recruited them or didn't recruit them, and saw them develop as players at the college game. Really, Jim Harbaugh has that advantage right now as he enters in that draft room to talk to the scouts. Is he's got that working knowledge as well, and so it really makes for the next few years Jim Harbaugh a threat in that draft room to be able to find gems, especially late, to fit his system. So, yeah, I think great job by the Chargers, and it looks like they utilize Jim's experience at the college level to be able to affect in a positive way their draft.
Now let's move on to maybe the best draft in the NFL this last year, as they've had great drafts for multiple years now, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles, as they had one issue with their defense last year, and that was defensive backs. They couldn't cover anybody. They could get after the quarterback as much as they had with that elite defensive line, but they needed some DBs, and they went after that and overhauled that with getting Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo, and Cooper DeJean, cornerback out of Iowa. He's going to be a cornerback / safety, I'm going to guess, as he's going to probably move all over the field for that defense. And I think it's a great pickup, as they love zone coverage over there with the Eagles. And I think that it's going to be a very nice duo there that's going to start for a long time.
Yeah, love what they did in this draft. Yeah, you definitely have to give them the best 2 years, right? Like last year they crushed it. This year they did a really nice job again. That front office is doing a heck of a job in getting the right players in place for those Eagles. Even though they faded late in the season this last year, I think the Eagles fans have a lot to be excited about as far as their roster goes. I think their challenges, can their head coach develop into the guy that's really a great NFL head coach? It's going to be his assistant coaches and all those kind of things. And I hope, that it all works out on that end. But, great drafts, 2 years in a row. Yeah, solidifying that defensive backfield with some great picks was super huge for them. And, that's, exactly what they needed to do at the top end of the draft.
Oh yeah, and then you got Hunt, the edge out of Houston Christian, which I love this fit for Hunt, as he's one of those guys that has long arms. He's an elite athlete, but I felt like he needed a little bit of development coming into this upcoming year, and him being able to be a rotation guy in an already very talented defensive line is going to open up a lot of opportunities for him to develop and become probably the peak that he could possibly become. Then you look in, you get the legacy pick and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the linebacker out of Clemson. I thought he was a very good linebacker at Clemson. He mans up the middle very well. He does have some deficiencies, but again, we're talking about a defense that has a lot of already solidified guys there, and he'll be able to develop and take over into that linebacker position. One guy that I thought was surprising to see him in the 5th round at the 172 spot was Trevor Keegan, the guard out of Michigan. Michigan had a stellar offensive line, and getting a guard like that to add to an already very, very good offensive line is nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Him. And then they had a nice pickup with Johnny Wilson, I thought, out of Florida State as well. That was a high-powered offense when they had the right players healthy, of course, at quarterback. But, yeah, we'll see how that all develops. But really, all the way through, early and late, Eagles, just a great, solid draft. How many legacy, father-son NFL players got drafted this year? It seemed like it was an abnormally large amount of former NFL players' sons coming into the NFL in this draft. It's kind of fun.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't get better than seeing a lot of father-son duos. Used to be a thing where it was those guys didn't work out. They were too pampered coming
Right?
into the league. But now with all the advanced training that those guys get, they come in really, really finished products, and I'm excited to see them hit the field in the NFL.